Okay, this is called Connections. In the spring of 1976, I stumbled onto a show that would change my life for decades. I nervously drove my Chevy clunker from, it was 1966, to the Starwood Club in Hollywood in the hopes of meeting my secret crush, a record company guy with piercing eyes and curly hair. Instead, I was overwhelmed by what I soon witnessed on stage. All of a sudden, before my eyes was a pub rock band called Dr. Feelgood that hailed from Canby Island. I didn't know where that was, but it sounded intriguing. And I was told by a trusted source it was a seedy part of England. My senses were inundated with the pulsing sound and by their two front men who stunned and amazed me. The main duo consisted of Wilco Johnson, who seemed possessed, darting across the stage and pointing his guitar like Al Capone, and Lee Rillo, the raunchiest rhythm and blues singer and harmonica player, who toyed with his microphone in ways that blew my 18-year-old mind to smithereens. This life-changing event turned out to produce not only the Wilco Rillo effect that was electrifying me like lightning, but another encounter at the top of the stairs as I made my way backstage, as I always did, after the show. As I began my ascent, I saw a curious British-looking bloke just atop the stairs at the entrance of the VIP lounge, wearing a loud bicentennial tie. It was 1976 after all. I took a breath and inched closer in my sparkly platform shoes. And staring into my eyes was again the bloke with the tie, slyly grinning at me like a Cheshire cat, just like a scene out of Alice in Wonderland. As I walked past him, a roadie who spoke in an English Cockney accent said, "That's Andrew Jakeman, Dr. Feelgood's tour manager. He likes you." I shrugged it off and stuck my nose up in the air as I had my heart set on meeting only Wilco. Being a guitarist, I decided with conviction and said silently to myself like an affirmation, I either want to play exactly like Wilco Johnson or at the very least, marry him. Alas, neither would come true. So once the adrenaline in my system calmed down, I managed to refocus my energy and work the room with my own flashing smile. With some kind of presence of mind, I did forge a friendship with the tour manager, Andrew Jacko Jakeman, praise rock, who would come to be known shortly thereafter as Jake Riviera, the infamous owner of Stiff Records and manager of The Damned, Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, Rockpile, Carlene Carter, and Squeeze. So that evening after the gig, I was invited, as I always am, to the CBS Records after party at the Continental Hyatt House, Riot House on the Sunset Strip, where most bands of the era frequented, partied, got up to no good, and as legend has it, Keith Richards and Bobby Keys threw a television off the balcony. The night did not disappoint, with lots of dazzling people, including the main event, the Feelgoods. Also in attendance were rock guitar god Pete Townsend, rock couple Michael and Pamela DeBar, bassist Nigel Harrison, DJ Rodney Bingenheimer, Russell Mael and Ron Mayle of Sparks, drummer Pete Thomas, and of course, a host of rock journalists and industry insiders that were drinking from the very, very free bar. And I think they had their feedback on too, eating. I also met my future bandmates, the women who would form Backstage Pass themselves, record company insiders, rock journalists, milling about and twinkling the night away, weren't you? Yes. Most importantly, Joanne Russo, who worked for Teen Magazine, played a bit of piano, and hung out at such places like the Rainbow Bar and Grill and Rodney's English Disco, as did I. By the fall of 1976, Backstage Pass was becoming one of the original bands of the emerging LA punk scene. But at first, we were tucked away at Cherokee Studios, feverishly learning how to play our instruments. I already knew how to play. I managed to stay in touch with Jake by overseas mail. We used to have a fake credit card in those days. And occasional phone calls. Wait, who owned it? Miles Copeland, yeah. We had a fake credit card. And by the spring, he came to stay with me and Joanne when he brought over the British punk band, The Dam, to the States. They would play a pivotal role in getting Backstage Pass out of our rehearsal room, and ready or not, pushed onto the stage in May 1977. "Stop rehearsing so much," Rats Gaby said. Captain Sensible concurred. "Get off your arses and do a show." So we did, and we all took on punk names to gear up. Joanne Russo became Marina Del Rey. I became Jenny Body. And I think that was given to me by Farrah Fuckett Minor. And Joanna Popkin, our bassist, was anointed Spock by none other than Dave Vanian, because she was a lover of science fiction. And Jake booked us a showcase on the Columbia lot, which couldn't have been more exciting. And so it goes. You better keep your backstage passes. Mr. Nick Lowe was at our very first show, hanging out at the bar with a very whimsical, stylish woman named Tony, who later married Jake. Also, in a bold move, Jake, well, probably because he didn't want anyone to upstage his act, he had Backstage Pass open for Elvis Costello that November 1977 at the Whiskey, another life-changing event that cemented our place in the early punk scene. You know, that night when Elvis came off the stage, he said, "I like the way you play guitar." I said, "Oh yeah?" He said, "I hate trees." I said, "Oh yeah, me too." He said, "Do you want to go kill somebody?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." Well, my stint as Backstage Pass's guitarist lasted about 2 years, from 1976 to 1978. When I got to know Tony, I was so enamored with her and in love with her occupation, seamstress for the band. You remember that song? That I decided to leave Backstage Pass and change direction. And what happened next, I could have never imagined. I became co-owner of rock and roll clothing store Strait Jacket in Los Angeles at the height of the MTV era, with Tony and Jake as my partners. It was exciting to be in the business, but be able to take a break from being on stage. I mean, I was so like 22. Strait Jacket was like my salon, where I would connect with bands, kind that brought me to Hollywood in the first place. In other words, I was a slut that like called every tour manager in town to find out where everyone was staying. I got to be the wardrobe stylist for album covers and videos for all of Jake's acts, and also bands like the Bangles, the Psychedelic Furs, the Go-Go's, Walla Voodoo. You know, Bruce Springsteen came to the store one day. I said, "Are you in a band?" And he said, "Yeah, E Street Band." I was like, "Oh." And he just like bought something and wore it on the cover of Cream magazine. I believe it. So I still wrote songs. I still knew how to play guitar. And Tony and I, we wrote songs together. She wrote lyrics, I wrote music. And before long, it wasn't before long that we were making demo tapes at Nick Lowe's studio in England. So music to this day still comes knocking on my door. Who would have thought I would reunite with Backstage Pass 40 years later in 2018? Thank you.